From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
The cleanup continues months after Hurricane Helene.
The impact of fall flooding on Tennessee farmland, much of it now covered by excess sediment.
It's not just homes in the path of high winds and wildfires in California, the latest on the farms and ranches being impacted. As the Biden administration issues new guidelines to aid in the production of biofuels while curbing imports of used cooking oil. So why aren't ag groups excited?
In all reality, it fell well short of our expectation.
Reaction to the proposal and what still needs to be addressed right now on AgDay.
AgDay is brought to you by Pioneer.
Ben's bins, please hold.
Yeah, Ben's has been busy all day.
Seems like no one can keep up with this new Z series. What did you all put in these seeds?
Science.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. The Treasury Department announcing preliminary 45Z guidance at the end of last week. This morning, we're taking a deeper dive into what it could mean for farmers and refiners. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins me. Michelle, much of this latest guidance is focused around an effort to curb imports of used cooking oil.
Yeah, Clinton, the guidance on how used cooking oil will be treated in 45Z for use in highway fuels was the bright spot of the release from the U.S. Treasury Department. However, the framework is still lacking major details to allow the industry to calculate the value of the credit, including an updated carbon intensity or GREET model, which is expected to be released yet this week. Biofuels groups are glad to finally see some form of 45Z guidance from the Biden administration. However, there's also disappointment with Treasury's framework for 45Z under the interim rule.
In all reality, it fell well short of our expectation and for the most part remains incomplete.
The draft defined who the producer is, how the producer will take the credits, and what fuels will be eligible, but did not update the GREET model, something they will be doing later this week.
And that will really tell us the emissions, the current emissions profile of each of our fuels and our feedstock, so that a producer can determine with some degree of specificity the value of the federal tax credit that they're going to receive under the 45Z.
The other detail that was omitted was the inclusion of climate-smart ag practices and how carbon intensity scores will be calculated.
We may see the USDA interim final rule that they proposed back before the holidays.
That will start to answer some of the questions that we have. And depending upon what that looks like, it might be usable or it might not.
Kavarik says the one bright spot was the partial exclusion of foreign used cooking oil as a feedstock from generating a credit.
For now, foreign used cooking oil is excluded from highway fuels. Could be used to make sustainable aviation fuel. Right now, there's no pathway in this notice for that foreign feedstock to be used to generate biodiesel or renewable diesel.
But it's also subject to scrutiny by the new administration.
They're not all that enamored with the Inflation Reduction Act. 45Z being the last tax credit to be have anything in terms of guidance kicked out by the Biden administration just doesn't give us a very firm footing.
And so the new administration could further delay the rule or just throw it out altogether. In either case, it decreases the odds farmers will see any payback from the program in 2025. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
AgDay is brought to you by Germinator Closing Wheels. Germinator Closing Wheels provide quicker emergence and are more consistent in dry conditions than any other closing wheels. Order 12 to 16 rows today and qualify for free shipping or 20% off an end zone moisture management package.
All right, thanks, Michelle. The latest report from USDA giving us our first real look at the winter wheat crop. USDA says more than 34.1 million acres of winter wheat has been planted. That's up 2.2% over last season. Taking a look at the state-by-state breakout, you can see states in blue up their winter wheat plantings, with states such as Michigan, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, and Virginia increasing their acres by more than 30%, while states in red are down, including Kansas, which is down 2.6%.
I think when we look at wheat, maybe you have a little bit of a surprise here in that you gained some winter wheat area. The trade might have been looking at maybe no change, and yet they got an extra 725,000 acres, a little bit more wheat area than folks had anticipated. And in that case, stalk red winter's down 0.5%, so maybe a little bit more wheat than folks had anticipated.
Now, last year, USDA says 26.1 million acres of winter wheat was harvested. It looks like another round of Arctic air is on the way for much of the Midwest. Meteorologist Alyssa Heilman has an update for us.
That's exactly right. Those cold temperatures expected to linger around in portions of the Midwest, seeing negative wind chills, very low wind chills in Bismarck, -20 as well as -19 in Minneapolis, and more negative wind chills expected this morning, -4 in Chicago, -2 in Rochester. So a large portion of the Great Lakes as well as the Midwest seeing those very cold temperatures from that Arctic air that has moved in. Going later into the day, into the afternoon, still seeing that cold just lingering around. All of that pink, of course, that Arctic air that's in portions of the Great Lakes and of the Midwest. Those high temperatures for the day, Bismarck just seeing 7 degrees for this afternoon, 3 in Minneapolis, 6 in Chicago, 1 in Rochester, and even in portions of the south, much cooler than they usually would see. Jacksonville just 56 degrees, 41 in Atlanta, 45 in Memphis. So cold temperatures are lingering around, as well as to the west, where they're seeing a good amount of temperatures in the 30s and even in the 20s as well. And a beautiful near full moon caught on camera. Check out this amazing picture from Carol Bauer. This was taken in Graceville, Minnesota. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
Southern California fire crews were slowly gaining ground against the deadly wildfires that continue to rage. And last report, one fire, the Hearst fire, was almost 95% contained, but a return of high winds could undo some of their progress. Lee Waldman has the latest from Los Angeles.
We gained no acreage yesterday, which is a very good thing.
LA County's fire chief offering hope in the ongoing battle against multiple fires still burning. The Eden blaze, one of the largest, is now a third contained, and at midday, fire crews were at 14% contained and advancing on the most destructive of the fires, the Palisades. A third blaze, the Hearst, last reported at 95% contained.
We are not in the clear as of yet.
The critical gains could be short-lived. Winds that eased over the weekend are expected to return to dangerously gusty levels now through Wednesday, potentially as high as 70 miles per hour beginning Tuesday.
The entire region needs to be prepared to evacuate.
Repopulation will not occur until all areas are safe.
That message today to those who've already fled, many who've lost everything and now want to see it firsthand.
They need that to file insurance claims. People just wanted to see what was left of their house.
We know that, but we have people literally looking for the remains of your neighbors.
A grim task that's expected to increase the death toll in the days ahead. A 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew remains in effect in fire zones, with officials confirming around 50 arrests so far.
We understand that people want to go back, but it is dangerous to do so, and we will not put anybody's safety at risk.
In Pacific Palisades, I'm Lee Waldman reporting for AgDay.
And while the wildfires in Southern California have done a lot of damage in heavily populated areas, USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says some ag communities are impacted as well.
As you move up into the hills, it's more sparsely populated, but there are some agricultural lands there, some ranch lands. And we saw that back in December with the Franklin fire that burned through some agricultural communities. And that has happened again. The damage is extensive to farm buildings, fencing, and to animals, unfortunately. And so we are dealing with some of the agricultural consequences in the far northern suburbs of Los Angeles with these large fires.
Now, one avocado grower in the Palma Valley tells ABC News he lost about 50% of his crops due to the high Santa Ana winds. Grain markets continue to trade higher, with soybeans gaining about 20 cents in the futures on Monday. We'll talk about it coming up next. And later, from wildfires to flooding, we're off to eastern Tennessee for a look at how farmers are trying to reclaim fields following the flooding of Hurricane Helene. Grains continue to march higher on Monday. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins us once again with more on the good news in today's markets now.
Grains to the plus side on Monday. Tom Fitzenmeyer with Summit Commodity Brokerage back with analysis. So corn and soybeans extending gains on Monday. And Tom, we're still seeing the market trying to digest those bullish report numbers, aren't we?
Absolutely. I mean, number one, you got the funds short soybeans and meal. So, they continue to cover shorts, especially, I mean, technically, obviously, we closed quite well on Friday. So just aside from the USDA numbers, technically, that's going to generate some short covering. On corn, funds are long corn, and this certainly gave them, the report anyway, gave them plenty of incentive to continue to add to those long positions.
So corn made new highs for the move, new high close. But can we keep going to $5, do you think? Do we have enough gas in the tank?
Well, that would be the top end in my mind. You certainly can run up into that 480 zone pretty easily, and then the going above that will get a little tougher. I expect you're going to see some pickup in farmer selling, which is going to tend to make the going a little tougher on the top side. But I guess you'd have to have $5 as your upside objective at this point, because it sure looks technically like that's possible.
So if the funds keep covering shorts, as you mentioned, in soybeans and even in the meal market, can we hit $11 over there?
I'd be really surprised. I think you're really going to have a tough time getting above 1080. I mean, never say never on 11, but I would really be surprised with this South American crop, well, particularly the Brazilian crop developing the way it is. I think that's really going to be tough. And I know there's some concerns about Argentina, but it sure looks like the Brazilian crop's increasing in size a lot faster than the Argentine crop is shrinking. And you've got other factors here. China's probably not going to. I mean, we did have an announcement of a sale yesterday to China, which was encouraging of soybeans, but they're probably not going to do a lot of buying with this Brazilian crop coming up. The real's dropping so that those Brazilian beans are getting cheaper. I just think there's a lot of problems in the soybean market.
Thanks so much. Tom Fitzenmeyer with Summit Commodity Brokerage. We'll have more AgDay coming out.
Watch Markets Now with Michelle Rook on the Farm Journal YouTube channel, keeping you updated throughout the day on the markets at the open, midday, and close. Find out what moved the markets today and what to expect the market to do next.
As for precipitation, we're just seeing a lot of lake effect snow in portions of the Great Lakes with that west and northwest wind that is sticking around as we go through Tuesday, a little bit into Wednesday as well. Mostly just seeing lake effect snow, of course, in those areas. Then we're seeing some rain as we go into parts of southern the United States. In Texas there, seeing a rainy system that then moves along the Gulf, bringing some rain to, again, portions of the south along the Gulf. And then a high pressure system sets up in most of the United States, seeing a big ridge there, leaving most of the United States clear from precipitation for Wednesday and Thursday before some more precipitation headed for portions of the northwest. Some snow in the mountains expected for Saturday, as well as a storm system moving into portions of the southern half of the United States, and seeing it there as it goes through, again, portions of the plains and then into areas of the Midwest for Saturday. Temperature outlook for January 20th to the 26th. Well, we're seeing below normal temperatures for a large portion of the eastern half of the United States, dropping all the way down into the southern United States, Texas there, Louisiana, seeing those colder than normal temperatures expected for this outlook January 20th to the 26th, and a lot of the United States seeing below normal temperatures up until we get into portions of the West Coast, mostly just California there, right around normal, not seeing areas with above normal temperatures. So cold just lingering around as we go into the 20th to the 26th. Now, a precipitation outlook for that same time period for the 20th to the 26th. We're seeing a good chunk of the United States right around normal for precipitation there. Just a couple areas differing, seeing they're drier than normal and a majority of the West Coast, as well as seeing some wetter than normal conditions for areas in the southeast, especially some of the southern states there. Florida, of course, you're seeing wetter than normal for that outlook, and that's what we're expecting for that precipitation outlook. Now, Bennington, Vermont, high 24, low of 17. Brandon, Mississippi, partly cloudy, high of 55, low of 34. Brookings, South Dakota, high of 12, low of just 0.
Dairy producers starting the year off with margin pressure following the latest round of USDA reports. A rally in grain prices following a cut to corn yields, helping push those feed costs higher. Milk prices were also under pressure. Class 3 February futures fell to near $20.27 per hundredweight, off 65 cents, while on Monday it did gain back some of those losses. Now, block cheese started last week at a 2-month high of $1.94, but closed lower as some support melted in the wake of that WASDE report from USDA. Now, USDA is forecasting lower production in 2025 due to slower growth in output per cow. For the first time in nearly 40 years, Germany is dealing with an outbreak of foot and mouth disease. It was confirmed in a herd of water buffalo on the outskirts of Berlin. The disease causes fever along with mouth blisters in animals, including cattle, swine, sheep, and goats. German officials say they're taking steps to contain it. The illness doesn't pose a danger to humans, but they can transmit it. Officials say affected animals have already been euthanized, and the country has already set up an exclusion zone and a monitoring zone. The last case of it in Germany occurred back in 1988. While California is dealing with an ongoing natural disaster, in Tennessee, farmers are still trying to dig out from their own flooding issues following Hurricane Helene. That story next.
The Dairy Report on Ag Day is brought to you by Enogen. Enogen delivers more available energy to your cattle, increased starch digestibility, and improved silage quality. Energize your operation with Enogen corn for feed.
Many farmers in Upper East Tennessee are still dealing with damage caused by floods from Hurricane Helene. And as Charles Denny of the University of Tennessee reports, in many farms, heavy deposits of sediment washed into the field.
It's important to understand that the word Nolichucky comes from a Cherokee word that means raging river.
The Nolichucky flows smoothly now, but when floods hit in fall, it took out this bridge and spread debris along this shoreline. Floodwaters also covered this adjacent farmland, and now left behind a Greene County field that literally used to be lower by several feet. What lies on top now, a thick layer of sediment dumped by floodwaters, the impact of Hurricane Helene and heavy rains.
So in addition to some producers having 6 inches or a foot or 2 or 3 or 5 feet of deposited materials that would be varying in texture from sandy materials to silts, some producers have lost property, lost soil through erosion.
More than 7,000 acres of Tennessee farmland was damaged by the flooding, much of that where sediment smothered fields. Now, early tests show this new layer of soil may be fine for pasture land, but there is concern about potential nutrient deficiencies in vegetable fields. UT's Institute of Agriculture is testing the nutrient value of fields, now with a new thick layer of sediment. Experts encourage producers to learn the makeup of their soil and test pH levels and potassium and phosphorus content.
You get some sand-dominated deposits, and then you get some silt-dominated deposits. And sometimes you get a mixture of both of them. What we're concerned about is you're going to have to try and manage these silt deposits a little bit differently from the sandier deposits.
About a dozen miles from that field, UT Extension held this flood recovery meeting for farmers. Many, like Jimmy Brooks, have seen excess sediment in their fields. They can't just scrape it away and are here to learn their next steps.
And then some places there as well, I have a sandbars now where there was never any sand, so I've got maybe a couple feet of sand in a couple of my lots as well. So that in the lower areas, the sediment may be at least a foot deep.
UT agricultural resource economics experts now put the total loss from the floods at more than $1.3 billion for Tennessee agriculture. It will be a challenge to restore our fields and farms, and producers will have to adjust to change soils.
This is Charles Denny reporting.
All right, thanks, Charles. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at Ag Day, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.